Welcome to the Passion and Persistence podcast. I'm your host, Elaina Mitchell, and today we have a very special guest with a very compelling story about their passion and persistence. But first, I want to remind you to subscribe to this podcast for inspiration, motivation, and business tips and tricks. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us today for the Passion and Persistence podcast, where we strongly believe that when you find your passion and chase it persistently, you will be happy and successful in life. So today we have our very first series about passion, and our very first guest to dive deep into that topic is Dominic Zingale. Hi, Dominic.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
Doing awesome. Good old Friday, another new day.
Yes.
I'm ready to tackle on this podcast.
Me too. I'm so excited. So thank you for joining us today. I actually have always loved your work. You were one of the first photographers that gave me a chance back in the good old days when I was.
Yeah, that was probably 2011 if I remember, even earlier.
Yes, I cannot believe how fast time has gone by, but your work just continues to grow and evolve, and it just awes me every single day. Is that a word, awe? It puts me in awe every single time that I see your work. So kudos to you on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so I wanted to just kind of figure out how you found that passion of yours. So I want to know, what is passion to you?
Well, passion for me, I think it's that feeling, that emotion that really comes out of you that's very natural. I think it's just one of those things that that when you're doing something for someone, it comes out at ease. It's very, very simple. I mean, there's not really much there's no force into it when you're doing whatever you're going to be doing. In this case, for me, it's photography. But yeah, that's where passion comes from me. It's having that energy. It's that glow of energy that flows out of you that other people can just look and see and to be like, hey, that person's passionate with what he's doing right there.
Definitely. I just got chills when you said that. And I can always see that in your work, the passion behind it. So did you always know what you were passionate about?
Uh, Honestly, no. I think that's one of the things that I would like to talk about in the sense that um, passion, sometimes I think people think it's usually something that you actually do, but again, it goes back to more of the feeling and emotion. And photography was something that was more or less very random that came to me. Growing up, it was always doing drawing, painting, and whatnot, but photography was something that was stumbled upon randomly to me. It was something during high school that just didn't come up. I was taking my regular AP courses. They messed up my class in sophomore year. So they said, hey, Dominic, we have these two classes. It's debate or photography. And I was like, hey, I'm not in it for debate right now. So I just took photography, and that's how everything started.
That
And
is amazing. That just goes to show you that I really do believe that we are pushed onto the path that we're meant to be on. And see, you didn't even have it on your radar yet. You're pushed away onto that path so elegantly. I just absolutely love that. It reminds me a lot of painting. When I make a mistake in my art, sometimes it turns into the most awesome picture from that mistake. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, exactly. I
Definitely. So
completely agree.
were there ever any bumps in the road along the way to finding your passion or unlocking it?
Um, with photography and finding that passion, I always believe, at least with myself, that I'm photographing someone, I want to try to find the true essence of that person. I think nowadays with social media, sometimes the way that we present ourselves, we can tend to put on a certain mask. So I kind of like to have that challenge of finding the true essence of that person. And I think it's a very, very hard process to pull out that essence from that person. So is it something that's difficult? Yes, because when you're photographing someone, you can't really put any form of judgment on that person. I think that's one of the things that made me realize as a person, and something that I am passionate about, is really coming towards a session with someone and just letting go everything and just seeing that person for who they are and then photographing them. So it's something that not everyone will understand for face value. So images that, yes, I may post on my website or on Instagram or anywhere else, people may see it for that face value, and that's sometimes the hard part, is seeing other people maybe putting that form of judgment onto a photo. Not something that may be positive, but from my understanding, I'm okay with it now. But growing up, since high school, it was something that I still constantly battle on a day-to-day basis.
Really? Because is it because of the subject matter of your images, or you just feel like people aren't really seeing the art behind the imagery?
Well, it's a combination of those two things. I mean, sometimes it's the images that I do post, and yeah, it's something that um, not everyone will truly understand. But that's a journey that every person just has to take, and it's not an easy journey as a person.
Definitely. And it just comes back to releasing that care of what other people think. You know what I mean? Because everybody does have different perspectives based on their experiences or how they grew up or their morals that their parents taught them. So everyone's perspective is so different. And it's like, you don't have to really care what the next person thinks. You know what I mean? You're doing this
Right.
for you. So that's amazing. I know you said you found your passion in high school through a class. So if you could go back to those days in high school, how old were you actually when that happened?
Oof. I wouldn't even remember. I mean, it's sophomore year, so 10th grade. So I don't know. We have to do the math on that one.
Like 16, 17, probably 16.
Yeah, it's probably 16. Yeah, I think it's probably 16.
So if you could jump back to the 16-year-old you and give yourself some piece of advice, what would it be?
Some piece of advice. Well, I know during that time I was so focused on being more or less an architect. Um, it's something that I was really pushing upon, taking all the academic courses and whatnot. So yeah, I think going back now, because when I made that switch to photography, um, I really felt like I needed to study photography, have a degree in it. And I think that would be more or less my advice, that maybe, if anything, do something more in form of business and let the photography or the creative avenue just grow along the way. I don't think nowadays you necessarily need a degree in this case with photography, because there's so much education online. Even what we're doing right now, it's perfect education, something that we can learn.
Exactly. I agree 1,000%. And I don't know if you know my story, but I actually dropped out of college. I never got my degree in graphic design or web design or any of that. But again, everything's at our fingertips online and you can just teach yourself. So it's a beautiful world we live in today.
Yeah.
Definitely. So if you could tell anybody listening right now, anything that you would want to leave them with in regards to passion or in regards to advice in that department, what would you say to them?
I would say that um, passion, it's a very, very tricky subject. I think it's a word and a topic that many people do talk about, but it's also based upon an emotion. And I think at the end of the day that we need to keep track of our emotions because it constantly changes. So I think when it comes to passion, you kind of have to have a balance between um, your mind and your emotion in this sense. And I think one way of maybe finding your passion is something that goes through helping other people. And I think that's probably a great way to start. If you don't really know what your passion is, I would say just start helping people, and you'll kind of guide yourself in the process of what you like and what you don't like. And I think that will find your way through your occupation. And in my case, I think photography was one of the avenues.
Definitely. I agree 1,000%. And again, I got chills when you said that. And it leads back to that persistence part. When you feel some type of fire inside, being persistent in chasing that, not always having to be perfect at it, but just persistently walking in that direction, it evolves into something so much bigger than ourselves, which is
Yeah,
where
no, I agree. I agree. I think being persistent is the key, and don't be discouraged when something doesn't work. And I think that's the hardest part too. You know, if something doesn't work, I think actually that's more of an opportunity of going somewhere else and trying to figure out, you know, what can I do to make it better.
Exactly, 1,000%. Goes back to what you said when you didn't even know you were going to get into that class, that photography class, and not getting mad at the fact that you couldn't get the other classes that you wanted. You went with it, and it turned into something so much bigger and more beautiful than you could have probably imagined at the time, right?
Yeah, it's my life now.
Yes, and it's a beautiful life. I absolutely love your work.
Most of my social handles or website, you can find me at DK IMG. M as in monkey, but yeah, DK IMG. Website, same thing as well too.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dominic. I have learned so much from you, and I am always inspired by all of your art and photography. And I want to thank you for giving me that chance way back in the day when I knew nothing about modeling, and you gave me some beautiful images to use for my portfolio. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It was fun. It was a pleasure.
Definitely. And you were always so welcoming and never made me feel bad, no matter how horrible I was in front of the camera.
No, we actually had fun.
We did. Well, thank you so much, Dominic. I hope you have an awesome Friday, and I would love to have you on again to talk about persistence in the future.
Sure. No problem.
Thanks, Dominic. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to our very first episode of Passion and Persistence. I'm your host, Elaina Mitchell, and I'd like to personally invite you back to listen in on our next episode from this Passion series, where we'll have special guest Daniel Alonso speaking about his passion for sales and marketing.